So my name is Jill Ryan. I'm Executive Director of Freshwater Future and Freshwater Future Canada. And I'm going to quickly run us through our grant process today and take any questions that you may have. We also have several other Freshwater Future members on our team here. Many of you have probably talked to Lori Breitner. She manages all the administrative pieces, so incoming grants, reports, all of those sorts of things, works with our grant readers. And also Alana is on, and she's handling our tech today, and she is our grants manager, and so you may also have occasion to talk with her. So just want to make sure everyone knows both of them. And then we also have our communications director is on, Leslie Burke. So that's just a quick intro to Freshwater Future staff. I'm going to give just a thumbnail because many of you know us well, but I know not everyone that's the case. Freshwater Future has been around for about 26 years now. We were started in Northern Michigan as part of a local watershed council. And basically the reason was because they're located between Lakes Huron and Lake Michigan, and they knew that they couldn't protect that place unless other communities were able to protect their waters. So as a result, they started something that was back then called the Great Lakes Aquatic Habitat Network and Fund. You can imagine why we changed the name, but but basically we still work on the same premise. We're here to help communities across the Great Lakes protect their own waters. And so I know that's why you're all here, because you have something on water that you are trying to protect or restore. And so we're extremely happy to have you here today. You may have seen in our communications that we have extra money this year, which is always welcome. So we have a good amount of money for the fall cycle. We have around, over $50,000 to distribute. And so we're really looking forward to these applications. It's always there is always some competition because there are so many wonderful groups doing the work across the region. We work in the 8 Great Lakes states plus Ontario, and we work with about 2,000 organizations. So there are lots of groups out there just like yours, trying to protect our water, which we very much appreciate. And that's why we still are here providing funding. We also provide consulting to help build your capacity. If you're starting a new organization or you need to move to the next level of growth, we're here and our staff are available to help with that. We have subsidies for that. And then we also work on policy. So where there are overarching issues among communities, we try to find policy solutions as well. So with that little introduction to Freshwater Future, let's jump right in. Alana, if you'll take us to the next slide, please. So right now we have the grant types are available. Our fall grants are probably the one you're here most to talk about. So we traditionally do a deadline in March, at the end of March, and at the end of September every year. So our fall cycle is coming up. Those are our grants up to $5,000. You can get only one of those a year. So if you already have one in 2022, you're not eligible until January for the next set. But you are able to have one of each type of grant we offer. So if you also have a special opportunity grant, those are only up to $750, but those are emergency grants. So if something is happening and you need to get the word out, or you need to buy a piece of technology or whatever it is, you can send us a quick letter application and we turn those around in 2 weeks to help you with emergency type situations. And you can have one of each of those per year. We also have available I mentioned the consulting. So we have, we call them insight grants, and those are available if you need help setting up your 501c3, if you need help with strategic planning or planning a strategy on a campaign, anything that's related to capacity, we probably help with it. And so we have grant funds available to help with that too. And that's a pretty easy application. And we don't even make you write it. We just do that over the phone. So if you're interested in capacity, you just give us a call and one of us will talk that through with you. We'll also cover today eligibility requirements. We're going to go over what's grassroots and what's advocacy, because those are often confusing because they're used in different ways in different places. And then fall project application process and timeline. So we will go into that in some depth, and then we'll take your questions. Next slide, please. So we not only work on the Great Lakes, obviously, but we also work on any waters in the region. So whether that's groundwater, drinking water, rivers, lakes, wetlands, any kind of water, we include that in our work. And I think we'll just jump to the next slide, please. So to date, we've funded over $5 million in grants. And that has included about 1,300 different projects. So we're very proud of that because we're very small. We are not a foundation. We raise all the money we give away. So we tend to give away about 1/3 of our budget every year to groups like yours. We see that as a very important part of our mission. Through these grants, groups have protected thousands of acres of wetlands. They've restored many miles of stream shorelines. They've protected groundwater. They've taken out dams. They removed sediments from waterways and engaged hundreds of thousands of residents in protecting water. So the breadth of what can be done with these funds is pretty broad, and we know that you all know your community best. You know what needs to be done where you live, and so that's the way we read the applications. We're trying to, if we can make it happen, we're trying to make those priorities fit our priorities. Next slide. So as I said, we'll have this fall deadline, but then we also will have a March 31st deadline next year as well. And so even if you get a fall grant, you could apply for a spring grant, one per year. We also have those special opportunity grants up to $750 that I talked about. The consulting grants, which you may see them called insight grants on our website. And then we also have some communication grants, but we don't have any of those cycles open right now. Those grants basically, they do two different things. They help with large communications issues, needs, and we have a different set of applications that help groups secure a website and connected database for their work. So if you're looking at our publications, you'll probably see those grants come up again next year. We just don't have any deadlines yet. Next slide. So what are the eligibility requirements? You must be grassroots. And what that means is most of the work gets done by volunteers. So yes, it's fine to have somebody who gets paid, but most of the work should be done by volunteers. And we don't have a specific dollar cutoff in terms of budget, but usually if your budget is much over $200,000 a year, it probably will not be high on our ranking list. Our readers are specifically looking for the smaller groups where $5,000 can really make a big difference. There's, of course, a water focus. It has to deal with some sort of water issue, and the work has to either be within the Great Lakes Basin or one of the states in the Great Lakes Basin. So that's, of course, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York. And then it can also be in Ontario. So those are the places we're able to fund. We ask that you are a current member organization of Freshwater Future. The membership starts at $100. I would imagine for anybody who qualifies, usually it's $100. If that is not possible for your organization, you don't have the ability to do that, then give us a call and tell us what you can do. And the reason we ask for that is because we have to come up with money to be able to go out and raise the funds. And what this does is ensure that the people who are working closely with us and we're able to fund at least some of the time, we're getting a little bit of skin in the game to help us actually go out and raise those funds. But we don't want it to be an impediment. So if your organization can only give $25 this year or whatever it is, we will work with you. We ask that if you've had past grants, that those reports are have been submitted if they were due. If they're not due yet, that's fine. And also, either the organization that's applying has to be a US 501c3 or a Canadian charity, or you have to find a fiscal sponsor. And that fiscal sponsor is has to be one of those two things. Basically, we're only able to provide our funds from the funders, we get them through to those types of entities. In most cases, the sponsor will simply accept the check for you and hold those funds until you need them. And they might be able to help you with the reporting process, but it is not an onerous process for a sponsor. Next slide, please. So what is grassroots? Those are groups with limited funds, as I said, relying mostly on volunteers for the work, and somewhere less than a $200,000 budget. Most of our organizations have far, far less than that budget. Many have a zero budget. So if your budget is small, don't worry, that probably puts you in a good place for our grants. Next slide. And what is advocacy? So we think of advocacy as being public support for or a recommendation of a particular cause or policy. It does not mean lobbying. We cannot fund lobbying. And in case you don't know what the legal definition of that is if there is some sort of law proposed and it has a bill number, or it has at least been proposed in a legislature or a local council, and you're asking someone to act one way or another. So you have a position and you're asking someone to act on that position. That we cannot fund. But we see advocacy as quite different. And I want to also say, but lobbying is not educating. So if you talk to legislators, whether that's your city council or a state rep or whoever it may be, that's fine as long as you're educating them on an issue and not asking them to take a specific action on a proposed law. Those types of things wind up looking like, encouraging permanent change. That might be encouraging a polluter to change something. It might be changing regulations. Working on regulations are not lobbying. Those are the things that come after the law about how it will be implemented. But it does have to go beyond education or stewardship. So we do sometimes, for example, support programs in schools, but there has to be an advocacy component. And one example I like to give is we had a great program a few years ago where a school system required a certain grade to go out and research some environmental issue in their own community and then come back and propose a solution to that issue. And they also required them to try to make that solution happen. And the example from that succeeded was some kids were learning about stormwater runoff. And so they decided they wanted to know what was going into the storm drains in public parking lots, particularly those owned by the city they lived in. And so they did some research and ordered some filters that would trap what was going through that storm system. They put them in there and they got them analyzed and found out it was a lot of stuff that they did not want in their bay. And so the solution they came up with was if the city did street sweeping on these parking lots before the first big rain, it would greatly help reduce those toxins that were running into the storm sewers. And so the kids went and advocated for that at a city council meeting. And the city council, how can you say no to extra street sweeping when these kids have done all this work? So of course they immediately approved, and they still do all of that today. They've upped the start of their street sweeping, and they make sure they get out there as quickly as they can in the spring. So that's the type of thing that would count as advocacy within an educational program. And really what we're trying to do with this requirement is to make sure that we're trying to create lasting change. And with stewardship as an example, those projects don't usually come up very high in our rankings if it's just individual stewardship of current landowners. And the reason is because often those landowners move on and that stewardship tends to be gone. And so we're looking for a little bit more long lasting than that. Next slide, please. So we've talked about the special opportunity grants. There is no deadline for those. And we've talked about coaching and consulting, so we can move to the next slide. So what do we fund? We're looking for, as I said, the permanent change and restoring or improving any type of water, including drinking water, in our 8 states and Ontario. We're looking for watchdogging and participating in the development, implementation, and enforcement of local, state, provincial, federal regulations. You can participate in enforcement. That is in no way lobbying. And you can definitely participate in making sure we have good regulations. Asking for changes and improvements as regulations are made is also in no way lobbying. And then citizen involvement. We really love to have an increased number of residents in your communities working on those issues, understanding that there are issues with water and working to resolve them. So that citizen engagement is a big piece. Next slide, please. What don't we fund? We don't fund governmental functions, units of government, governmental agencies, conservation districts, which are quasi-governmental, but even quasi-governmental we don't fund. We don't, as I said, we don't fund the lobbying activities. If a project has already been completed, we can't retroactively provide that funding to pay back a loan or pay back a budget. We also, because we provide specific consulting grants for our time, we don't have funds to provide cash for others to do consulting. So in other words, if you want to go out and hire a different consultant to do strategic planning or strategy development or whatever it is, that's great. We encourage you to do that, but we just don't have a pot of funds to fund those activities. And then, of course, partisan election activities, no 501c3 and no Canadian charity can do those things. So that's always a prohibition. Next slide, please. All right, so let's get into this process. First of all, we encourage everybody to call for one-on-one help. So as you're preparing your application, or even before that, as you have an idea, you're welcome to call us and ask about that idea and run it by us. You can call, oh, I see a hand up. Hi, Peggy.
It says the deadline is September 30th, 2020.
I missed that one. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I couldn't help it. You know, it's that peer review person in me. I just find errors.
Absolutely.
I wish I could find them on my own work.
Right. Yes, and I'm just going to ask Alana to make a note so we go back and change that later. So yeah, call us for help. We find it's really, we do not want to say no. And we certainly don't want to have to tell you no after you put in a lot of work into proposals. So we would rather have the conversation with you up front to see if it's a likely good fit, and if you're interested in it, even help you figure out how a slight change might make it fit our priorities and our criteria. You can call Lori and you can call Alana, and the best way to do that is just send them an email and they will set up a time with you. Sometimes they won't have the answer. They'll have to come back and ask someone, and but they will get right back to you if they don't have all the answers. So as I appreciate Peggy pointing out, the deadline is actually September 30th, 2022. I'm a little behind here in this one. I missed all of these on this slide. So the grant period would start January 1st, not July 1st, January 1st, 2023. So the grant deadline is September 30th, and then the money goes out January 1st of next year. And you have generally 1 year to work on that project and spend that money. If you have a different timeline that you need, shorter or longer, you can ask for that. And then the report is due a month after the end of the project. So if you have a 1 year project, the project would end in December 2023, and your report would be due January 31st, 2024. Any questions on that? I know I messed all those numbers up. So yes, Dennis. Oh, you're muted, Dennis.
If we had a project that we were applying for as a, you know, the deadline for applying is September 30th, 2022. I understand that. But if our project would include some months between October 1st of 2022 and January 1st of 2023, would that period of time be included in this grant then, that if we were able to get a grant from you, or would it not be?
Yes, you can include expenses in that interim period. We just want to make sure everybody knows that there's no guarantee of the funds until you get a letter or a call that says you were awarded the funds.
Okay, and then, but the actual grant period would, but here's my follow-up to that question. So let's just say that a project that we would be applying for would include time in October, November, December of 2022, but also would include time in August, September, October, November, December of 2023.
Mhm.
Would that be workable as well?
Yes, I would just suggest that you ask for that period. So tell us in your application that you want your grant period to start from September 30th, 2022 and run through whenever you want it to run through. And that can be 15 months if you want it, that's fine.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah, great question. Thank you. All right. Was there another question? Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. So as you get ready to prepare your application, we've just come up with a few questions that we find useful in preparing our own applications. And so we thought we would pass these along as ways to think about your proposal. The first is, what is the water-related problem that you're addressing? Clearly identify that problem for us. And then think about who are the people who can make the decisions? Who are the decision makers on this? You know, sometimes that could be a corporate entity. It could be a state agency. It could be a local city manager. And so identifying that can be really helpful to creating your proposal and thinking through your strategy. Then how will you connect with that person? You may not have a direct link to them, but if you don't, maybe you have other, just like Kevin Bacon, right? We're all connected somehow. So getting together with your other organization members and just talking that through and seeing if there are ways to get to those decision makers. Sometimes too, you don't have to have a personal way to get there, but you might say, well, we're going to send a petition, or we're going to ask people to send out emails or call a certain person. All of those are great ways to reach a decision maker. And then what tools and information will you be providing to educate that decision maker? Really getting clarity about what your ask is that decision maker can act on. And then if it would help to discuss this with someone outside, you can call us. Again, call us if you want to run it by us, and we can help you determine if it's the right, we think it's the right approach. And also you can do that with other people in the community too. You know, talk it through with other community members and members of your organization. Next slide. So a few slides ago, I mentioned that we'd like you to become members of Freshwater Future. And I want to let you know what the benefits of membership are, besides the fact that you can apply for grants. We have several networks that you can participate in where you can exchange information on the issue you're working on strategies, all sorts of things. And you can even send a request out to our email list asking for people about a specific thing. An example that we get occasionally is, I don't know how to review an EIS statement, an environmental impact statement. Does anyone have any information for me? How can I do this? And often other groups will send along materials about how to do that. And sometimes they'll even volunteer to help you review it. So having access to those networks can be helpful. Consulting assistance comes at reduced fees for our members. And then of course you can also get grant subsidies for that. And then you'll also receive our newsletter, online resources that are for members only, and toolkits that we have. And then we also make trainings and events that we host available to all of our members. So those are the benefits of membership with Freshwater Future. Next slide, please. All right, so it's really time for you to ask me now. What do you want to know from us? And I'm going to ask Freshwater Future staff, if you can, to if people have questions in the chat or that sort of thing. I can't see everyone. Oh, now I can. Thank you. Yes, Dennis.
Yes, I have another question, please.
Sure.
Do you have any kind of a library of consulting experts that perhaps some of your clients have used in other cases, like, for example, wetlands specialist or hydrogeologist, along those lines?
We do, in a way.
Okay.
The way you just said it, a library is a great idea, which makes me think we'll create that. We'll figure out how we could create something like that on our website. What we have currently, though, is we know a lot of those consultants. And so if you'll send us or call us with a specific type you're looking for, we will let you know what we know.
Okay. Thank you, Jill.
Yeah, absolutely. Other questions? Yes, Graham.
Just to clarify on the Insight grants, do those entail using only your in-house consulting expertise, or?
We can only pay for our in-house expertise.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
That's the question.
Great. Other questions?
Jill, did you see, let's see, Carolyn, she came in late and she just wanted to clarify again on conservation districts being eligible. You could just mention that again.
Yes, conservation districts actually are not eligible as a quasi-governmental entity. Sometimes conservation districts are able to apply under an association, a conservation district association, if the work still fits our criteria. But yes, we have a limitation with our funding on not giving that to quasi-governmental entities. Thank you for that question. Peggy, I see your hand.
I'm good at raising my hands. I'm relatively new. I created a nonprofit last year called Between the Waters, and I get caught up in some things in Toledo and Cleveland, as well as the Ohio River Valley. But I've not really learned how to ask for money for donations.
That can be difficult.
It is, because I've always given myself freely to this kind of work. And so I realize that if I am to grow, I need some work on my website. I need to get some accounting and possibly, what is that called? A social media push out, because I deal with all sorts of water issues. People pull me into, they just pull me into things. So would the grant cover some of those issues that I'm having?
I'm trying to think.
The needs to push out with social media. I mean, I'm
yes, if you
overwhelmed.
can. So here's how that would kind of work. If you have a need, say, to push out social media around a particular issue, say somebody wants to put a rocket launch pad on your shoreline. If you wanted to put that out there, you would write the grant application for that, even though, yes, you're going to use that again in the future. the way to write it for us is to write it around the issue you're working on right now. And so, yes, then we can cover some of those costs around communications and that internal capacity. We also have, for example, on the bookkeeping side, we do have some trainings on bookkeeping that we do, and we have some consulting on fundraising too. So we have the person who raises our funds also helps groups to figure out how they raise their own funds. So there are a few different ways to approach it, but yes is the answer. And if you want to talk through like how to get that into your application, you're welcome to give us a call too. Great question. And Mary Alice, I see your hand.
Thank you, Jill. I think I don't know how to ask this question, but I'm just going to throw this out here and you can give me some guidance as to how the grant, if it can help. I remember we were discussing Ox Creek in Benton Harbor that is full of contamination with waste left behind years of industrial usage.
Yes.
And just last week, we had a sewer break that ended up in St. Joe River.
Wow.
That comes in off the channel of Lake Michigan. I mean, it's like a channel that comes off Lake Michigan.
Mhm.
And I think it went into the Paw Paw River.
Wow.
And the health department was supposed to take care of it. Now, mind you, this happened Friday, but the health department was going to take care of it first thing Monday morning.
Oh, wow.
We
That's
never
really-
heard from the health department per se, but we heard from our city clerk that sent out a press release about, the problem had been fixed. But, and I guess Eagle is checking to see the rates of whatever waste, contaminants or what have you. I don't know.
Mhm.
But I'm trying to figure out how can I incorporate this type of stuff, because
Yeah.
the channel of the way the channel is made, where the sewage spilt, I mean, and it's flowing through Paw Paw River. Ox Creek is actually running off of Paw Paw River.
Okay.
So
Interesting. Yeah. So definitely you can put that into a grant application because you have a current issue with that break in the line. And if you want to continue to monitor that issue as well as, put some systems for watchdogging those kinds of activities in Benton Harbor, that could definitely make a good grant application. Creating the person power and the systems to be able to monitor those in real time and hopefully get the word out about what's
Okay.
happening.
so I guess now I need clarity on watchdogging or monitoring. What does that look like?
Well, watchdogging can be a whole bunch of things. It can be looking at is an agency adequately implementing laws? Is its regulations sufficient? Is it coming out today to look at whether that cleanup has succeeded? But it's also things like looking at potential farmers who may be discharging manure onto farm fields during frozen ground and having that run off into a stream. So it's sort of looking at your own community and finding those things that could be problematic and having a system for being ready to look and respond.
Okay, so what I just heard you explain, in my mind, I'm thinking the word whistleblower came up. But to follow that problem and to monitor it and see what the outcome and all of that is. Am I on the right trail?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay,
Yep.
good. Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions? Well, the only other thing I would like to do with our time, if you don't mind, is to just go around the camera. I'll call on you since I can tell who's gone and who hasn't. just so you can tell us your name, your organization, and where you're located, so that there might be someone else that you want to connect through that's on this call, and we'd like you to be able to do that. So I'm gonna just go around my screen. And so first would be Mary Alice Adams. Would you just introduce yourself?
Commissioner Mary Alice Adams for the city of Benton Harbor and founder and CEO of nonprofit named Project Need Foundation.
And you're in,
And we've been operating for a little over a year now and couldn't do it without Freshwater Future.
thank you, Mary Alice. We appreciate it. All right. Leanne, would you go next?
Sure, I'm Leanne Simpson, and I'm calling on behalf of a local association, Crooked Creek Association. Our properties border Crooked Creek and Lake Erie in North Springfield, Pennsylvania.
Excellent. Thank you. And Norman, would you go?
Well, I'm Norman Wingrove, and I'm with the Blue Mountain Watershed Trust Foundation. We're headquartered in Collingwood, Ontario, on the shore of Georgian Bay, and we've been in operation since about 1995. And our original goal was to protect the Silver Creek wetland, which is a provincially significant wetland on the shore of Georgian Bay, and that's still ongoing. Our main success was about 20 years ago, where there was a golf course proposal wanted to go in the wetland, and at that time the town of Collingwood official plan said, "Oh yes, that's good. You can put a golf course in the wetland." And we worked with the town, and the town supported us, and we were able to put a stop to that. And we still are working on protecting that wetland, but we have other issues as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Norman. And Dennis. Oh, you're muted, Dennis.
I have 3 dogs, and I didn't want to hurt your ears with their barking if they see a squirrel. So my name is Denny Ferraro, and I'm the president of Citizens for a Safe and Clean Lake Superior. And we're based in Marquette, Michigan, on the beautiful southern coast of Lake Superior. And our mission is to protect the lake from and the lakeshore habitat from industrialization. And in particular, we're focusing on trying to stop a crazy proposal to put an industrial rocket launch site on the shoreline at Lake Superior.
Thank you,
And-
Dennis.
And, you know, Norman, I was interested, you know, they plan to shoot these rockets up over Canada. And maybe you and I can chat sometime privately about maybe some networking that we can do on this issue.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Dennis.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Excellent. Thank you. And Graham, would you go?
Hi, Graham Lund. I'm also with Citizens for a Safe and Clean Lake Superior. I'm the treasurer of the organization. So pretty much everything Dennis just said, I'm working and supporting also.
Excellent. Glad to see you. Glad to meet you.
Thank you.
Bob.
Good afternoon. I'm Bob Stuber. I'm with the Michigan Hydro Relicensing Coalition. It's a coalition of 5 organizations, Trout Unlimited, Anglers of the Au Sable, Michigan United Conservation Clubs, Michigan Steelhead and Salmon Fishermen's Association, and the Great Lakes Federation of Fly Fishers International. And we are interested in all things related to hydropower projects in Michigan, and especially related to the Great Lakes tributaries, and opportunities when these projects come up for licensing, that they are done in a way that protect the environment, that basically balance environmental needs and recreation needs with power production.
Excellent. Thank you, Bob. And Peggy, would you go?
I thought you were kidding about the rocket launcher.
Unfortunately not. No.
Sorry. My name is Peggy Berry. My pronouns are she, her. I am a registered nurse. I have a PhD in nursing science, and I've been involved with the environment since 2012. And I started a new nonprofit. It's a 501c3 now, called Between the Waters. And I work with A to Z Plastic, Sierra Club, the Alliance of Nurses for Healthy Environments. I do whatever necessary for clean water. And that's why I called it Between the Waters. It's between the Great Lakes and the Ohio River and beyond. I do whatever I can to ensure great drinking potable water for our public, in and knowing it all goes downstream. So what we do in West Virginia and Pennsylvania, and I'm actually on Zooms with them, goes down the river, the Ohio River, into the Mississippi, into Louisiana. And we have to do whatever we can as far as that water is concerned. But I'm brand new, and I know I'm going to make mistakes, but I also have the Ohio Poor People's Campaign as fiscal sponsor. So there's a lot of stuff going on with lead piping up in Cleveland, algae out of Toledo. So I want to be able to help with all of that. And I'm now a member of Freshwater Future. I mailed a check to you guys, I think last week.
Wonderful. Thank
So,
you. That's
yes,
great.
because I think it's important. And the Great Lakes Network. I listen to those calls too, just to see
Wonderful.
what I can do to help. And that's what I'm here for.
All right. Well,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Peggy. Appreciate it.
And I have another meeting at 1, so I'll probably have to cut off soon.
Okay. Very good.
Thank you for this.
Absolutely. All right. Next, we'll go to Donna. If you're able to unmute, Donna.
Yeah, I can unmute. Hi, Jill and everyone. My name
there.
is Donna McDuffie. I'm a resident of Detroit. I live in the Chandler Park area. I am the president and chair of a grassroots organization, Friends of Chandler Park, and we deal a lot about water quality, urban flooding, and affordability issues.
Thank you, Donna. It's great to have you on the call.
Ah, so good. Thanks.
And last but certainly not least, Deb Doherty, are you able to unmute? Uh-oh. We can't hear you if you're talking, Deb. All right. Well, we can't hear you, Deb, but if you are able to come back, just if you're able to unmute, let us know and we will hear from you. So that's the group on the call. And we appreciate everybody for being here. One question I'm just going to ask, because we did have a little bit of networking time. Would anybody mind if we shared your names and emails just among this list?
Please, not at all.
I'm okay,
Yeah,
no
that's
problem.
No.
Good
I
idea.
think that
Yeah,
I think that it's very important, and I just shared an email with you, Jill. If any of them have anything going on in their prospective communities as it relates to this climate bill that just came out, I sent you an email about the whole recording. It's like 6 hours, but it's broken down in parts and pieces that feel free to share with them, please.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. Great.
Thank
All right.
you.
So, yes.
Yeah.
Was that you, Norman? Oh, I thought somebody said Jill.
No, I said, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's like part of that IRA had to do with the hydrogen hub, which would increase the amount of it kind of like gives fossil fuel industry a reason to keep drilling because they want to capture the carbons and they can ship it to the hydrogen hub. It's all unproven technology and it's a false solution. So that's one part of that climate bill. We have to fight against the fact that even Al Gore was pleased that this went through, is because there has not been any monies for climate change previously. And that's why everybody's so happy it passed without discussing the other bad part associated with it. And that group gets much more money than the climate change stuff. And I'm so sorry, I have to go. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Peggy.
Bye-bye.
All right. So what we're going to do next is we're going to send you all this recording. It'll take a day or so. You have to download it and all that. And then at the same time, we'll send you a list of just the people on this call. So we don't share emails generally, but in a group like this, I think it makes sense. And it looked like everybody agreed with that. So thank you so much for your time. I hope we see your applications come in and have some great calls about your wonderful projects.
And can I say one thing about that?
Yes.
If you send an application to me and you don't hear from me within like 24 hours, please reach out to me again. When I've got so many coming in, I don't want anything to slip between the cracks and not see your application. So like I said, if you don't hear from me right away, contact me again, please.
Yes, we do send out confirmations of every application. So within 24 hours, you should receive that. Good call. All right. Well, thanks again. And have a great day.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. That was great.
Thank you.
And
Stay safe, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
bye.